Hi, all. We are on our last lesson of this chapter. So, notes should look like the screen right here. It should be on the back of the sheet from last lesson. It's just a one-side page titled Inequalities of Two Triangles. So, take that out and we will begin. So, after the main idea today is you're going to use this thing called the hinge theorem to compare angle measures and side lengths of two different triangles. We've done something similar to this earlier in the chapter, but it was in one triangle. So if I just drew a quick example here, let's say we have this triangle with side lengths, I don't know, well, let's label our sides A, B, and C, right? And let's pretend this is 4, 3, and 5, okay? In our other lesson that we had earlier in the chapter, we were able to make comparisons of these angles based on what side they were across from. So like we would say our smallest angle would be across from our smallest side, right? Which is 3, so that would be angle A. And then our medium angle, the middle size one, would be across from our medium side, which would be 4. So that'd be angle C. And then angle B would be our largest angle because it's across from the biggest side, right? Do you guys remember this? Okay, so now we're going to do a similar type of reasoning, but it's not going to be in one triangle, it's going to be in two. So to demonstrate this hinge theorem, we have two alligators here. They're identical twins. I don't know, we'll call it Larry and Harry, I don't know, doesn't matter. So Larry and Harry, they're identical, everything about them. So Larry, let's say like this part of their, finding a loss of words. It's not a mouth, what is that? Whatever. The chomper, we'll say is 10 inches, and Harry's is also 10. Then the bottom part of their mouth is, let's say, 7 inches, and this guy is 7 inches. But Larry likes to talk a little louder, so his mouth opens a little bit greater. Let's say his mouth opens at a degree of 42 degrees. And Harry's a little quieter, so his opens at like 36. Whose mouth is opened greater based on this information? Well, I'm hoping you're thinking Larry's is because his angle is bigger, right? That makes sense. This side here, his mouth would be open larger than Harry's because the angle is greater. So this is, in a nutshell, what the hinge theorem says. The hinge theorem says you're going to have two triangles with two sides that are the exact same. So 10 and 10, like here, and 7 and 7. And based on what angles between them, you can make a comparison of that third side. So let's fill in your actual notes now, okay? So again, we'll read this real quick together. It says, if two sides of a triangle are congruent to two sides of another triangle, and their included angle of the first is larger than the included angle of the second, then the side opposite the first triangle is larger than the side opposite the second. Again, let's just break it down. We have two pairs of congruent sides. AB is congruent to ED, and AC is congruent to DF. And they're telling us if angle A here, so if angle A is greater than angle D, then BC is greater than EF. So if angle A is bigger than angle D, we would know that BC is bigger than EF. And like in most things in math, the converse of that is true. So let's pretend that we know that BC is greater than EF. We would be able to say then that angle A is greater than angle D. Words in math are hard. When we do some examples with some numbers, it's going to hit concrete and this will make sense to you. But again, just don't overthink it. Never overthink it. Okay, so it says, compare the sides and the angles by filling in the blank with a less than or a greater than symbol. So I want you to always check to make sure you're looking at like the right information. Remember, you have to have two sides of those two triangles that are the exact same. So they want us to compare KL and PM here, right? But let's make sure I have a 9 and a 9, so I have one pair of sides, 15 and 15. So far everything checks out. And now we can make a comparison. So KL is across from 79. PM is across from an angle of 74 degrees. Well, we clearly know that 79 is greater than 74, so KL has to be bigger than PM. Okay, our triangles can share a side, that's okay. They want us to compare AD, so this side here, and BC. Now let's check. I have a 24 and a 24, so that's one pair, but I don't have anything else. But you guys are smart cookies. We know that they share a side, which means it's congruent to itself, so there's our second. And now we can compare. AD is across from 59, and BC is across from an angle of 65. Well, 65 we definitely know is bigger than 59, so BC is indeed greater. All right, now we're trying in some angles, so we're going to go the opposite way, the converse. Again, we're just filling in with a less than or greater than symbol. So let's look here. We have angle D we're looking at, and angle H. So let's make sure we have two pairs of congruent sides that it's between. I have 16 and 16, that's one. 25 and 25, so we check out there. Now let's look. H is across from 33. D is across from 35. We know 35 is indeed bigger than 33, so angle D must be greater than angle H. There is a typo in your notes. Would you please change this to the measure of angle E instead of the measure of angle D? Will you check that for me quick? All right, now let's compare these guys. So again, we're comparing angle A, so I'm going to mark that so I know, and angle E. Now let's make sure they're between two pairs of congruent sides. I have a 12 and a 12, there's one. 18 and 18, there's my second. And now let's see which angle is greater than. So A is across from 16, and E is across from 15. Again, not rocket science here. 16 is bigger than 15, so we would know that angle A is greater than angle E. So I think we would get pretty bored if that's all we did this lesson, right? And I know how much you guys hate to be bored. So we're going to throw in a little bit of algebra just to kind of make things a little interesting. So it says find the range of possible values. So we're looking for what values would work in this expression for x, okay, to make it true. So let's first decide what angle is bigger. Let's call this angle right here angle A and this bottom one angle B. So let's make sure all of our things still check out. We still need our two pairs of congruent sides. So I have one tick mark and one tick mark, that's one. And then they do share that middle, right? So that's our second side. And now we can compare. So if I look here, 65 is across from 5, and angle B is across from 2. So we would know that angle A is greater than angle B. Perfect. So now let's fill in. Well, what is angle A? Well, they tell us angle A is 65. And I know that has to be bigger than B, which is 5x minus 10. But now the only kind of tricky part to this is we want a range. So I want like an upper bound and a lower bound. Like I want to find out between what values will make this true for x. So we need to figure out what our lower bound over here is going to be. Well, in order for this to even exist, right, for this to even be a triangle, what degree measure does this angle have to be bigger than to exist? Well, it has to be bigger than 0, right? Because if it's a 0 degree, there's nothing. There's not an angle there. So I know it has to be bigger than 0. It could be 1. It could be 0.5. It just has to be bigger than 0. And now we solve. This looks kind of scary. Again, some of us had awesome Algebra 1 teachers and experiences, and some of us didn't. And like the spring COVID, like who knows what we did. It's very easy to figure out, though, how to solve this. Our end goal is to get x by itself in the middle. So what do I have to move first? Well, we got to add the 10. But you don't just do it to the left side. You got to do it to both. You got to do it to all 3 parts, each part of that inequality. So then we'll have 75 is greater than 5x, which is greater than 10. And now it's pretty easy, right? How do you get x by itself? Divide by 5. And again, do it to all 3 sides. 75 divided by 5 should be 15. 15, yep. X is in the middle. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And just because we should kind of care, this doesn't really make sense. We should have it going in ascending order, right? So let's flip it around. So we're going to have 2 is less than x, which is less than 15. So you can pick any number between 2 and 15, plug it into here, and it will give you a number less than 65 degrees. Then our last example for this chapter through notes, same kind of question. It says, find the range of possible values. So if we look here, we're having an angle measure again, so I'm going to call this one angle A, this one angle B. Let's make sure everything checks out. I have one pair of congruent sides, 12 and 12. So that's one. They share the middle. That's my second. And now we can compare. So if I look, angle A is across from 11. And angle B is across from 10. So we know that angle A has to be bigger than angle B just because 11 is bigger than 10, right? So angle A is greater than angle B. You don't have to write that. I'm just trying to show you my thought process. Now let's fill in. Angle A is 3x minus 18, which is greater than 42. So on that last example, we didn't have a lower bound. We had an upper bound. But this time, I don't have anything happening over here for my x. So what does this angle over here have to be less than if it's in a triangle? We know for a triangle to exist, it has to be bigger than 0, but we already have a lower bound. But what does this angle have to be less than if it's inside a triangle? Well, it has to be less than 180, right? Because 180 degrees is all 3 of our angles added together. So we know for sure it has to be less than 180 degrees. And now we solve like we just did on that last one. So we want to get x alone in the middle here. So what do we move first? We add that 18 to all 3 sides. So we'll get 198 is greater than 3x, which is greater than 60. And then we just simply divide everything by 3. 198 divided by 3, you guys. 66. 20. And again, just because we should have it going in ascending order, we'll put 20 is less than x, which is less than 66. So just to reiterate, any number between 20 and 66, if you plug it into here, will give you a number greater than 42. Thank you for watching. I super appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these on your remote days. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in class.